2024 might just be the year of the new crypto millionaires. After the carnage of 2023, where we saw the huge collapse of FTX, hacks, lawsuits, and all kinds of things going on in the crypto world, it finally feels like 2024 might just be the morning after the night before. So if you're looking to benefit from this period, then watch this video because I'm going to outline where I think crypto is heading in 2024, some data on when the best time to invest in altcoins might be, and the latest crypto insights on a wonderful 194-page report by Messari, which gives us all the latest insights. Before we begin, I must say that none of this is financial advice, and at the time of recording, I don't hold any positions in any of the projects that I mentioned. The bull market is back, baby. Just look at that chart. What a wonderful sight it is. Bitcoin has risen very, very nicely in the recent months. And you know what? It was kind of inevitable. Despite the gloom when the bear market took hold, I always tell people that when you're in doubt, just zoom out. And you can see that on the chart here. So let's take a look at what was behind this revival. As of the 11th of January, the SEC approved Bitcoin ETFs. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but it really is huge news for the crypto community because it finally legitimizes the trading of Bitcoin on the mainstream public markets. So much was the effect that Bitcoin ran up to $42,000 in anticipation of that. And on the first day of trading, around $4.6 billion, yes, $billion was traded on the public markets. Now, you might say that Bitcoin ETFs have always existed. What on earth is the big deal? Well, it's true to say that ETFs have existed, but they weren't actually invested in actual Bitcoin underneath. They were just tracking the price of Bitcoin. However, these new ETFs are actually backed by Bitcoin, and that really, really helps the Bitcoin price. So why not actually just buy Bitcoin? Well, the answer is convenience, right? So if you have an account already with a stockbroker, it's easier to buy an ETF that owns Bitcoin rather than opening up a separate crypto account entirely. And what that means is we're bringing millions of new potential investors into the crypto sphere. Now, one drawback of owning ETFs is the fees. All ETFs will charge some kind of fee, no matter how small or big it is. They range from around 0.2% to roughly around the 1% mark. And you might argue that that's too much because if you own Bitcoin directly, of course, there are no fees. But having said all that, the main point still stands. The authorization of the ETFs is going to enable millions and millions of more new investors coming into Bitcoin. You might have heard of the famous Bitcoin halving, which is imminent on the horizon. Now, what is the Bitcoin halving? In a nutshell, Bitcoin miners use very, very powerful computers to generate Bitcoin, and they earn a certain reward in exchange for doing that. The Bitcoin halving is where the reward that is usually given to a miner is cut in half. And what that means is that miners are less incentivized to generate more Bitcoin, which in turn affects the supply of Bitcoin on the market, which in turn should increase the price. Now, for most currencies, the supply is controlled by the central national bank. They control how much of that currency is in the market. Whereas with Bitcoin, it has already been predetermined that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, and there's already 19 million out there, which leaves us with just 2 million more Bitcoin to be mined. The Bitcoin protocol automatically reduces the amount of Bitcoin being issued every 4 years. That is, in a nutshell, what the halving is. The limited supply is one of Bitcoin's most important features, and the halving mechanism ensures the integrity of that. Okay, well, how does this actually affect you? Firstly, nobody actually knows for sure when the Bitcoin halving will be. Now, given what we know about the supply mechanics going on, we can assume that it will be somewhere around April 2024, but we can't put an exact date down. But the more important question to ask is, what is the halving going to do for the price of Bitcoin? To answer that question, let's look into the history books. So the first halving was in 2012, and actually there was no effect on the price of Bitcoin. Now, this was in the day before Bitcoin was very mainstream, before the days of lots of rampant speculation. So perhaps that is the reason why. In 2016, however, which was the second halving, Bitcoin rose around 200% in the build up to the second halving. And in 2020, for the next halving, we saw a 100% increase in the price of Bitcoin in the year leading up to the halving. At the time of filming, we're now roughly 3 months away from the predicted halving, and Bitcoin has gone from a price of where it was in around April 23 of roughly $30,000 up to where it is today, which is around the $43,000 mark, which is roughly a 50% increase. So based on what we can see, other than the very first halving, it seems like there definitely is an increase in the pre-halving period, but the amount of that increase and the amount of that growth has been becoming less and less as the years go by. That being said, given the limited supply of Bitcoin and the mainstream adoption that is now coming in, I personally think that Bitcoin is one of those assets that is generally a decent hold in anybody's portfolio. Now, Bitcoin is the big daddy of the crypto world, but there's actually a whole other massive world within the crypto market. They are things called altcoins. And altcoins, you can think of them as the penny stocks of the crypto world. They're small projects led by often small teams, and if you invest in them, you could see either huge success or you could see your money literally go to zero. So the obvious question to ask is, when should I invest in altcoins? Now, the important thing to remember here is that because Bitcoin is the big daddy, it leads the market. So the sentiment around Bitcoin tends to lead the sentiment around crypto in general. It's very rare, in fact, I think it's unheard of, for Bitcoin to be in a serious bear market and the rest of the crypto world to be booming. And I've been doing a bit of research, and there seems to be a simple formula that can predict when the right time to jump in on altcoins actually is. And that metric is called Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance is the share of Bitcoin relative to the overall cryptocurrency market. Bitcoin dominance is different to the Bitcoin price. And this cheat sheet, which is up on the screen now, is a simple formula for how to assess when the right time to be investing in altcoins is. What I suggest you do is take a screenshot of this cheat sheet rather than me going through every single explanation. But in a nutshell, the golden season for altcoins seems to be when Bitcoin dominance is trending down and the Bitcoin price is trending up. This is when you can expect altcoins to be rising. Overall, I guess we're all just very excited at the fact that crypto finally seems to have awoken from its slumber. In terms of a strategy, I suggest two things. Firstly, if you just want solid exposure in your portfolio to the world of cryptocurrency, then Bitcoin is the way to go. Either you do that through these new ETFs, through your stockbroker that you can now access, or you open up a crypto account with one of the mainstream providers. The other way to get exposure, or an additional way to get exposure into the crypto world, is by investigating this world of altcoins and putting a small amount in there, because it is a very high risk strategy, but it can be a fun one and an interesting one, and also a very high reward one. And we're going to go into some really, really interesting areas of the altcoin world right now. So as we said, the world of crypto goes beyond just Bitcoin, and actually not a lot of people know that. But once you start digging into this rabbit hole, you'll start understanding the real life use cases that cryptocurrency can have. There's lots and lots of projects out there using blockchain technology that have real world and real life application where this is truly the future. And if you can get involved in those, either through your investment or through actually using it and earning coins in that particular network, then you could be a massive beneficiary as well as an early adopter to new technology in the world. Until recently, DeFi, or decentralized finance, was all the talk of the town within the altcoin world. People like the idea of central banks not being the ones to dictate where the money flows. But now, with a lot of the new regulation and the pressure that we've seen, it doesn't seem to be as fashionable an area to be looking at anymore. But since then, a few more interesting areas of crypto have opened up. For example, DePIN, or decentralized physical infrastructure. And this is the idea of taking real world physical assets and tokenizing them so that the people own them. Then you've got DSOC, decentralized social media. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out all of the complaints that people have against some of the big companies like Meta and X, and the idea that big central corporations own a lot of the data in something as important to all of us as social media is. And so decentralized social media are networks which are free of a central corporation owning your data. You are the one in control of your data, and there isn't a big central organization that owns all of that. Then there's DeSci, or decentralized science. And this is the idea that scientific research can be opened up to the people, and people can actually benefit from collaborating in scientific research projects. At IFG, we've always been advocates of using our money not just to invest in things that will make us money, although that is great, but also to put things where you can actually have an impact and actually change the world. And as crazy as it sounds, some of these tiny projects today could become the big players of tomorrow. And it's up to us as investors to look at the landscape and see where is it that we want to put our money, both in terms of returns and also in terms of impact. So be sure to look at projects that you find interesting, really research them deeply, and if you like them and you think that this is a net positive for the world, then be sure to back it. Now, this is the bit that I'm really excited to share with you, because I read the Messari report, and by the way, you should read it for yourself if you find this video interesting. But having read it and gone through it, there's really one area that stood out to me, and that is DePIN, which we just discussed. Now, rather than trying to explain exactly what DePIN is, let me just give you a couple of examples, because one of the reasons I really like the area of DePIN is that it is inherently very easy to understand. One of the criticisms of crypto is that for the average person, it's really difficult to decipher, and DePIN just isn't like that. So let me give you the first example. The first example is a project called Hivemapper, and Hivemapper is basically trying to be a decentralized Google Maps. So if you think about all the activity that we do on Google Maps, Waze, or whatever navigation software that you use, all of that data is owned by one big corporation, and often it does sit with us a little bit uneasy, but we accept it for what it is, the fact that they know exactly where we go. Whereas if you've got a decentralized version of this, that data is yours. The code is transparent. Nobody owns the things that you do. Nobody knows where you are. And the project is super interesting. You go on the website, you buy a $300 dash cam, you connect it up, and you contribute to the project simply by doing your usual drives. And by doing your usual drives, you're contributing the recordings of the streets and the roads and the motorways that you go on, and therefore helping to create this new version of effectively Google Maps. And for that, you earn something called Honey. And Honey is the token that is associated with this project. Another interesting project that I found in the DePIN space is called Flux. Flux is basically a decentralized version of Amazon AWS or Google Cloud. So the idea is that individuals all across the world contribute their computing power in order to operate what is effectively a cloud network. And that cloud network can be used for people to run their websites, their apps, and everything else on. The beauty of something like this is similar to Hivemapper. Individuals are actually earning money from contributing resources that they have. And this is actually the essence of Web3. It's about owning and making money and rewards from things that you're contributing to. Now, the reason I gave these examples is because it helps you to understand DePIN in a much more concrete way. And it's not just me that this area has stood out to either. When I started delving a bit deeper, having read the Messari report, it looks like there are multiple commentators out there in the crypto world that also really like this space. One of the main reasons I like DePIN is because it feels very real world, and it also captures, I think, the essence of Web3, which is all about owning and making money and contributing to the things that you're offering. Whereas in the world right now, there's large corporations benefiting from us without us really taking any reward. It also offers people a really easy entry sometimes into contributing to projects where they're not as technical. So Hivemapper, I think, is a great example of that. Anybody can buy a dash cam, follow some instructions online, and start driving. I strongly suggest reading the Messari report if you do want to delve a bit deeper into understanding DePIN, and then going off from there and researching other resources online. There are other really big projects in this space, such as Akash, Arweave, Helium, and others. So in summary, now is probably a good time, if you've been hibernating in the crypto world, to start waking up. Of course, there's never any guarantee of any bull run, and anyone that says there is lying, but patience tends to pay off, and you want to be well positioned for any bull run that is coming. As we've discussed, beyond Bitcoin, altcoins offer a really interesting space to make outsized returns and also, frankly, great impact. So take this video as a starting point to look at the Messari report, and then use that as a starting point to start looking at individual areas that you're interested. Find projects that you like and contribute to them, whether you're investing in them or whether you're contributing to them in another way. It really is an interesting way to see tomorrow's world. So let me know in the comments, how are you positioning yourself for Bitcoin or altcoins? Which projects do you like in particular? Which ones are you holding for the long term? Which ones are you contributing to even? I'd love to find out how you are positioning yourselves in the comments. Until the next time, assalamu alaikum.